Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Millie, and today is the day I get to show you all the vegetables that I planted. Now, it is the end of May. It's the day after Memorial Day. And yesterday, which was Memorial Day, I started planting all my summer vegetables. And I wanted to show you what I planted, talk a little bit about whether I do dig or no dig in my beds, and just kind of revel in the fact together that we're finally able to plant our summer vegetables. Now, if you live in an area where you've already been able to plant your summer vegetables and you're starting to harvest, I am so jealous of you. But anyway, let's go look and see what I planted and talk a little bit about what I did to prepare for it. So we're going to start in my side yard first. And on my temperature gauge, it's been about 114 degrees here most of the day. The rest of my property was right around 85. So it was kind of a hot day, but it is starting to cool off a little bit. So when I first planted these tomatoes, they were looking pretty bad, pretty wilty, but they are starting to look a lot better. Now for these beds, what I did is I added compost, peat moss, vermiculite, and a little bit of organic fertilizer. And so let's kind of go over the varieties that I planted. Now this bed is my sauce bed. I have Amish paste in front. I have 2 Amish paste here. And then I actually put a sun sugar right here. I like to put a cherry tomato in, well, maybe, yeah, I guess in each one of my beds I like to have at least 1 cherry tomato. So this is a sun sugar. And then in the back we have 4 San Marzanos. Now these are all tomatoes that I've grown in the past, and I absolutely love them. Now we are doing something that I haven't tried back here because this bed is a little small. I actually put basil in between the tomatoes, and I'm hoping that we can just have it lean forward and come out of the bed and hang down the front. Because usually by the time these tomatoes fill in another couple of weeks, this whole thing is just completely full. Now, the way I train my tomatoes is I do train them to a single stem. I go through, and if I see any little side shoots, I don't see any now because I took them all off, and we'll go over that a little bit later as they start to grow. But if I see side shoots, I pick them off and let it be 1 stem until it reaches the top. Once it reaches the top, then I let the side shoots grow. And it just makes a big, nice, full bed of tomatoes where I can have a lot of different varieties. I've got a little marigold here. Now I don't plant marigolds for companion planting purposes, and the same with the basil. I plant basil and marigolds with my tomatoes just because I have always liked to. Now depending on how you grow them and what you do with your marigolds, they can be a good companion plant with tomatoes in that they help repel root knot nematodes. But to be able to repel the nematodes, what you need to do is you need to plant the full bed full of marigolds, cut them off at the base, and then plant your tomatoes. That's the only way to really have them work well. So I plant them because they're beautiful, not because they repel the nematodes. A lot of people will say basil will repel insects. I've had a lot of insects on my basil in the past. I don't think they repel insects. And they say they make tomatoes taste better. I think they all taste the same whether or not you have basil planted in them. But I think they go together because of the cooking and because it's just the way I've always done it. It makes me happy. Companion planting that makes me happy. I've got a little more basil in here, another marigold, and then we have a little tomato that's a little worse for wear. This is a chocolate cherry. This is a new one for me. We're going to try that out. We've got an indigo kumquat, which is another one that's new to me. This is going to be a gorgeous little cherry tomato. Both of these are cherries. In the back, we have all of my Jet Star. And then this one, I am really excited about. This is my very first GMO plant that I've grown on my property. This is the Purple Tomato by Norfolk Industries. And we've actually, we have a flower bud on it already. So we're going to try the purple tomato. It looks like it's about the size of a cherry tomato. It's purple all the way through. It was crossed with a snapdragon for is it the anthocyanins? I can't remember. It was crossed with the snapdragon so it can be a healthier tomato. And it's just going to be fun to try it and see how it is. And I am not worried about GMOs. GMOs there's so much controversy to them, and I'm not worried about them at all. I've done a lot of research into them, read a lot of scientific studies. I've been around long enough that I was here when they first started doing GMOs, gone through all the hype, and so far none of the hype has played out. They have been helpful in the countries that they've been released in. They have not taken over and ruined the world. So anyway, I was very excited to plant my very first GMO plant, the purple tomato. Now this is my pepper bed. I just barely planted it, and I think I got a little carried away with the amount of peppers I put in it, but they should be fine. I put 15 peppers in a bed this size last year, and they did really well. Now I put 18 in this one. Now a lot of these peppers are peppers that I grew last year. It's a mixture of hot peppers and mild peppers. Some of the ones that I hadn't grown before are the Hatch Mild. So I've got a couple of Hatch Mild. These are in the front are my mild peppers. We have a Corno di Toro Gallo. I probably mispronounced that. That one's going to be a yellow pepper. This is the one I couldn't pronounce last year. I can't pronounce it this year either. It's Aconcagua. It's a very, very large bell. It's very sweet and very good. We've got a couple of Jimmy Nardellos. We've got an Aleppo. This is one of my favorite ones. This is from Syria. It's a hot pepper, makes an excellent powder. We've got a couple of big Jims. An Ahi Cachuca. This is a new one for me, Ahi Cachuca. Purple Tiger. We've got some Hawaiian Sweets. Another Aleppo. And then this one is the Sugar Rush Peach. And then these are the Chocolate Cherry Candy Cane. Absolutely delicious bell, gorgeous. The plants and the peppers are variegated, so they're really beautiful. Now up here in my buckets, we have 3 banana peppers right here. And then I planted 3 jalapenos. Only one is looking good. The other 2 are looking pretty bad, and I'm hoping they pull through. These were planted last night. But these pots have an automatic watering system that are attached to these beds. And I'm hoping that they do as well as they did last year. I grew peppers in all my buckets last year, and they did really do well. Now I'm waiting for the rest of my beds to be done. This bed has carrots. We've got some lettuce that I'm going to allow to go to seed, so it'll reseed itself. And then we've got my spinach that is going to seed, and I think I'll let 1 or 2 of those go to seed. Down here, this wild contorted mass of vines is my Chinese mountain yam that I just can't get rid of. Now, I think at the end of this year, whether I feel like I have time or not, I am going to actually come through and do a video on what the little seeds look like. The seeds are what you eat. They look like extremely miniature potatoes, taste like potatoes, and that's what you grow the plant from. They also have a root that's edible. I've never been able to dig deep enough to find the root. My onions are coming along. We have some red onions, some Spanish white, some Spanish yellow, and I think we have some candy onions in here. We harvested most of my celtis, and so we're going to have a little spot here. I think right here, well, I don't know. Let's go down and show you another bed, and then we'll talk about that in just a minute. We've got our garlic that's going to be ready in a month or so. It's looking absolutely gorgeous. And if you look at the size of the stalks, you can kind of see the size that the bulbs are going to be. They're looking really good. We've got my cauliflower here. We've got a mixture in my cauliflower. We've got some white, green, and purple. And I think what I may end up needing to do is to bring a shade cloth and put it over it in a little while. It's getting really warm, and brassicas don't do well when it gets too hot. So we'll put some shade cloth over it and see if we can get some good cauliflower heads. Now this bed is a hot mess. It's got all my wintered brassicas, the brassicas that I overwintered. All of them have gone to flower, letting the bees take those. And as soon as I have room in my trash can, because they also have aphids on them, I'm not going to compost it if it has aphids, but as soon as I have room in my trash can, We're going to clean out this bed and we're going to put some fennel in here and maybe a squash. My other 2 buckets, there's one right there and one right here, have shallots, more shallots and kohlrabi. So these upper beds, we're going to have a lot of room to plant more things as soon as we harvest the early spring crops. Now I wanted to talk to you about dig and no dig before we talk about planting tomatoes. This bed right here I tried overwintering cabbage in it, didn't do very well. I think last year it did better than it has in the past. We got some good cauliflower out of it. But in previous years they were strawberries, and the strawberries just declined heavily and did not do really well. So I wanted to dig down and see what was going on with this bed that was causing such problems with my plants, because I really wanted these peppers to do well. And then when I got to the bottom, well, number one, I have to say that the entire bed was completely dry. Even though we had run irrigation and I had hand watered it, it was drying out in 1 day or less even. So it wasn't holding water. And then when I dug down, I found some things. This is only half the pile that I found. These are roots. Roots from the grapevine over there. And when I first built these beds in 2000, I think it was 2008 that I built them, I decided to do an experiment. I'd covered this entire hill in fabric, in weed fabric, because this was all grass when I put these beds in. And then I covered the weed fabric in mulch, but I had the weed fabric left under this bed. I wanted to see if it stopped weeds coming through better and if the plants could still grow with the weed fabric under it. And it did fine for quite a few years, but I think part of the problem with this bed is the weed fabric. So we had to dig out this entire bed all the way to the bottom. I pulled out the bricks on that side to get to it. We got the weed fabric all the way out of this bed. This is just a pile just to show you kind of what I was dealing with. Just so you can see, this was the Costco weed fabric way back when, 2008. And it was completely solid all the way through. It hadn't decomposed at all. But I'm never leaving weed fabric under my beds again. This one was the only one that I left the weed fabric under. The rest of them, I did cardboard. And then there was a couple that I just didn't cover anything. I just put the soil in, and there was no difference in any of them other than this one with the weed fabric under it. So now let's go to show you one more bed and then talk about whether I dig or do no dig in my beds. So this right here is the bed that I'm going to use for my sweet potatoes. My sweet potatoes are hardening off right now. We'll be planting those in the next few days. But when I went to prepare this bed, I needed to smooth it out because I had amended the first half of it last fall. This half over here wasn't amended, and it was down several inches lower than this other side. But when I went to try to to scrape the soil over so that it was level, I started finding roots in this bed. Normally I do no dig or no till. And I do that because it's been shown to be one of the better ways to do it. I'm not a fanatic about it. I will dig sometimes. But most of the time I just throw amendments over the top, use a broad fork, wiggle it through the soil a little bit so that the amendments can go down a little. But this time when I was trying to get through the bed, I found more roots in this bed than I found in the other one. I didn't keep them, I already threw them away. But they are from the spruce tree over here. It was completely riddled in roots. It took me probably 2 hours to get all of the roots out of this bed. So when you are looking at dig, no dig, till, no till, I think every once in a while you do need to come through and dig through your beds and see what's going on underneath them, especially if you're starting to notice a decline in vigor of your plants. So anyway, this bed is completely dug out. There's no more roots in it. This bed over here will probably have to be done in the fall because I have all my kale and chard for the year planted already. So the kale and chard is already in here. So I can't dig this out right now, but we will do that later. So now let's talk a little bit more about tomatoes. I have more tomatoes in here. These are my dark tomatoes. We've got some Cherokee Purple and some Carbon. My favorite Black Seaman that I usually plant, they didn't germinate this year. I need to get more seeds. But I broke this Carbon off too, but it should be fine. So Carbon, Cherokee Purple, and then we've got some more here. We've got a Sun Gold so that we can compare it with the Sun Sugar. We've got a mushroom basket right here, gorgeous corrugated red tomato. And then I think this one right here might be another Jet Star. Before we talk about planting tomatoes, let's talk a little bit about the tomatillos. So I've got 2 tomatillos. It sounds like you need 2 of them so that you can have good pollination. But we're going to have tomatillos at the end of my sweet potato bed. These other 2 beds are going to be squash. So I wanted to show you a little bit how I plant my tomatoes. So we're going to plant this mushroom basket. I'm going to look through it first and snap off any of the side shoots that I see. So we've got a side shoot right down here. Well, actually, we've got leaves. Let's pull this leaf off. Let's see. Some of these side shoots are hard to tell what is what. So we're snapping off the lower leaves because we're going to plant it deep. And then this right here, this little piece right here is a side shoot. So we're going to snap that off. We've got another couple little tiny ones, because we want this plant to grow up into a single stem. So now that we've snapped those off and looked at our tomato, we're going to dig a really deep hole. I think I'm actually going to dig it on this side. So we've got a pretty deep hole. The roots on this look pretty good. We're going to shove that down in there and then cover it up. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this garden tape. We're going to wrap it around the tomato and then tie it to this pole right here. We're not going to tie it too tight. We don't want to strangle the tomato. But we also want to help start training it so that it grows up the pole, and we're going to have it stay a single stem. So now that we showed you how to do this, let's get the other tomatoes planted. Oh, and then we've got to be sure to put the tag in too, so we remember what they are. Then the last thing I'm going to do is put the mulch back over the top. We put this on last fall to protect the bed. I moved it to plant the plants, and now we're going to just move it back over the top. So there we go, the last of my tomatoes are planted. Now all that I need to plant for my summer vegetables is my squash, which I'm actually starting indoors right now. I put some seeds in pots, and the reason I do that is I have these very lovely quail in my yard, and their very favorite things in the world are newly sprouted cucumbers and squash, and they eat them as soon as they sprout right out of the ground. But if I let those plants get 2 or 3 mature leaves, then the quail don't like them anymore, so I just start them indoors and transplant them outside. So sweet potatoes and squash. And then the next video that we're going to do, maybe it'll be the one after that, we'll see. I have a new bed, a new Vegega metal bed that I'm going to put together right here. It's going to be a round one. We'll show you how I do the irrigation. We'll show you how I amend the soil. And that's going to be a fun video. And along with that, there's going to be another video. Maybe we'll do them in the same video. I don't know. We just have to see how long this is going to take, we are going to put our very first Olla system into our garden beds. And I'm really excited about that. So I hope you look forward to those videos. And hopefully if this video has been helpful for you, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.